Hello, my name is Jeff Jamiolo, and today I want to talk about religion versus spiritualism. Just want to give a little warning that if this triggers you, you may want to rethink your level of openness, because even as a religious person, you're supposed to be open. So I do believe that actually no one knows the truth. There's a lot of facts in the matter. If you actually look at the original books of the original books, basically Jesus went to the Far East to learn mysticism, which was spiritualism, before he went to go over and preach. So technically, you could say that spiritualism was around well before religion was. Just saying. And I just want to mention that because if you really seriously are triggered by that, you need to look inside. You're not healed somewhere, because no one really knows. The whole purpose actually behind the Bible is to have faith. If anyone could prove anything beyond a doubt, there would be no need for faith. And that's really what God wants, is faith. Actually, it doesn't matter which religion, actually. They all believe the same thing. It's based on faith. I just wanted to get that out there, that warning. But for years, there's actually been a war between religion and spiritualism, because people usually look at the spiritualism side and say, oh, well, those are witches. That's a pretty old school view. Like most people will go out and look, and if you go on YouTube, you'd actually see some tarot readers, and most of them say a prayer before they do something, and actually have a cross around their neck. And they pray to Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So I don't know. I just know this. I do believe, as a soul, we have to go through both sides. The first side we go through is religion, because religion teaches us structure. And once we get the structure, and once we start living like that structure, we can then go to spiritual side. Spiritual side generally are people who are happier people. Don't get me wrong. A further warning, that religion and spiritualism both have people inside of them that are totally toxic and almost demonic. So just throw that out for you. A lot of times you can actually go to church and you can see people praying, saying their prayers, and some people are saying a much different prayer, because they're actually praying to Satan and putting a curse on everyone that's there. But that's a known thing. It's not like it's not unknown. That's why sometimes I kind of laugh, because everyone gets hung up on the church thing, and I go, really? There was no real concept of church. There was not supposed to be a physical brick and mortar church. Church is supposed to be a place where you gather to talk about religion, not necessarily an actual concrete place. And my dog lives. I woke up. That is Akita. Alaskan Husky, 5 years old, female. And yes, Akita is the name of another breed, but the alternative was actually Snickers, and she just burped. The Akita was actually, I chose Akita not realizing it was actually another dog breed. However, the alternative was Snickers, and I wasn't about to call her after a candy bar, so I won that. One moment. Sorry. But there's been a lot of wars against a religion across the board. Technically, you could actually say that religion caused a lot of problems, because you look at basically the Inquisition, you look at anything, you look at the Holy Wars, the Crusades, literally is one religion against another. And realistically, all religions lead to the same place, to God. So But as I said, it's people have a tendency to want to flame each other on the topic. I go, but it is my belief that you do have to go through the religious side first. You learn structure. You learn that. The problem is, people, for some reason, there is no reincarnation on the religious side. So that has been stripped out, even though it's in other books of the Bible, but not the Bible that they approved. That's the dirty secret of humans approve the Bible. Now, it's not what God's inspired words, because God's inspired word isn't everything anyone writes. But people forget that. So yeah, so we got words that say, reincarnation is real. I go, but well, the church didn't canonize it, years ago. It's like, oh, okay, so the power hungry wanted power. Okay. But reincarnation is real. So you reincarnate a couple times till you get the religious thing right. And once you get the religious thing right, because that's actually, I think, the harder part of it, is the religious part. Is the structure, or say discipline, I guess. After that, the next step is actually the spiritual side. And usually the spiritual side is a much easier one to deal with. It doesn't mean they're any better. It's just as you learn lessons, there's different lessons you need to learn. And when you get to the spiritual side, you learn different lessons. And you really shouldn't, trash talk the other side. But you have to imagine, remember, they're just like just fake, religious people out there, just fake spiritualists. So, hence the reason why you gotta have faith. And you gotta pick who it is. And I said, most spiritualism, you'd be very surprised to find out how religious they actually are. They just don't thump a Bible all day or read from the Bible constantly, but they say pretty much a lot. Especially tarot readers. Go on YouTube. I myself have a thing against organized religion, because once you start organizing it, that's when you got the problem. Because you got, now at this point, you have to have some sort of bureaucratic structure or power structure. You have to have someone above you, and that's the problem. The person above you is God. If you think about the original church, you're all equal talking to God. Now you somehow put someone above you that's supposed to know better, and that human is fallible and does stupid things. As the Catholic Church is finding out, with their pedophile problems, their small children problems. But the fact remains is there really shouldn't be a fight about it. I suspect that religion and then spiritualism, that is generally how that one works. And actually, once you graduate out of the spiritualism side, I'm pretty sure you're out of the earth school altogether, and you move on to other realms. You're not training anymore. Training day is done. There's a lot less chaos than there is here, but you have to learn the lessons here where it's safe to learn them. One wrong move and you don't, nuke an entire planet. Not to say that anyone would, but this. But I really do wish we could all get along. Because realistically, as much as people like to throw around the Bible and say they know something, they don't know squat. Because you weren't there when they originally wrote the Bible. And actually, you weren't there when Jesus was walking. So you don't know squat other than what was reported by those Bibles, which I do believe to be accurate. But now at this point, you have to actually also trust is how accurate is the translations, because some of those have been translated 4 or 5 times. Just like it's kind of funny that as a white person, generally we get the notion that Jesus was white, and based on where he came from in the world, it's probably not the case. He's probably not white, but they will swear up and down that it is. But I wouldn't hold your breath on that. But as I said, I strongly encourage you to have an open mind, because what's really crazy about it all, as much as the world likes to go crazy, just imagine for a second if right at the White House, a UFO lands, and if that's not shocking enough, one of the beings pops out and says, "Hey, how you doing? By the way, we believe in God too." And you're going to watch 10% of the religious population just freak out and go over and kill themselves. For no reason. It's just, pay attention to your belief system. Where did you get the notion that that's a demon? See what I'm saying? It's, pay attention to where your belief systems come from. And every now and again, you need to check your belief system to see if it's still accurate. You know, does 1 plus 1 still equal 2? Or does 1 times 2 equal 6? Ooh. As I said, pay attention. Because sometimes your belief systems over the years and based on things that happen to you somehow get changed. And that's by manipulation, or that's by the media, or by your friends, actually. And actually going to church. Going to church is a real big one. Because, as I said, in the last 20 years, I don't know if I went to church, and I don't recall them ever talking about in the last 20 years about sin, about actual committing a sin. And that's Catholic and Baptist. I don't know about the Protestants. I've never been to one of their services. But it's interesting that sporadically, and I must have went to a Baptist church for, it was actually with Jessica. I went there for almost a year and a half. She was actually the secretary of the church. So, a year and a half, if not 2 years. And never once did they mention sin. But they'll tell you to vote for it, though. Because it's good for them. I said, very, very funny that I think no one should judge another. Just like I don't believe in organized religion at all. I believe the original intent of your church being you get together with other people of like minds as yourself, get together and worship God. That's simple. Why is that to be complicated? That's why there's also an issue about tithes somewhere in this. It's like I don't recall ever them seeing tithes anywhere in there. And actually in the Christian, on the Catholic side, Roman Catholic, there is no tithes. You pay pew rent. So you pay rent on your pew. So they get money regardless whether every year, period. So it's very interesting where tithes come into all this. I understand why they're there. It's to help the Lord's work. I go, but at the same time, pay attention because I don't recall that ever moving up the food chain. One good thing about Roman Catholic is actually you get to learn how terrible actually your church is. Because literally my whole time I was growing up, I heard I was going to hell and there's nothing I can do about it because of original sin. I can confess all I want, but I'm still a sinner. Even if I did nothing, I just sat there and did nothing, I was still a sinner. Somehow. But if I keep giving the church money, it could get better. And then you learn that, your local parish gives money, and then the donations move up the food chain until they get to the Vatican. And that's when you learn how corrupt the real system is. And no offense, Baptists are the same way. No offense, Presbyterians are the same way. So you tell me, I don't remember seeing any of that in the Bible. Nor do I remember seeing a pope in the Bible. So, anyway, it sounds like I'm picking on religion. I'm actually not. Because you can also look at it the other way around and say there's other people on the spiritual side that are master this and master that. And I go, you don't know. Just because they're on YouTube saying they're a master. It's kind of like actually in Louisville. I live in Louisville. Is everyone likes to sit there in their apartments, say we're luxury apartments. Yeah, really, until you go and you find another one. And people say, oh, I live in luxury apartments. I go, do you? I lived in a real luxury apartment and then moved to a crappier one that said it was luxury, and then moved to another one that was crappier, moved said it was luxury, and moved back to the good one. And you do miss actual luxury. And luxury doesn't necessarily mean new. It means it has nice things. It just people love to slap that label on there. That's it. Just like I labeled most religions just now. But I do say that, like anything humans create, there's a possible corruption in it, whether it be spiritual side or the religious side. I would like you to just remember something, and that you are to have a personal relationship with God, regardless of the church. So I think the church is somewhat of a problem. I wouldn't say all of them. There's a lot of smaller churches that are all right. But then you go to mega churches where you're just a number and a cog in a wheel, and you're donating money. You know where it's going now. Matter of fact, I wouldn't be so shocked to find out if there's money laundering or some sort of trafficking going on in most of them. It wouldn't shock me. But you can't collect that much money and have it kind of go nowhere. As much as they like to say it goes back into the church, tithes are supposed to help other people. And just a brief story. My mother has passed away, but back in the day, and my mother was actually kind of jaded about the church. What got her jaded, well, there's two things that got her jaded. The first thing that got her jaded was she was divorced. And back in the day, you couldn't go back to the church. If you got married in the church, you could not go back to church if you're divorced. And he was abusive as all hell. So that was her belief. Other thing actually was interesting was they used to have Catholic charities. And my mother's car broke down, and she needed an alternator. And at the time, I think it was like $180 or $200 or $60 or something like that. This was back in the day. This is back in the 60s and 70s. So she went to, my grandparents were devoutly religious and gave all the time to Catholic charities and said, hey, go to Catholic charities. They should be able to help you. And she went to go over there to get help, just wanted a loan until she got paid to, get her car fixed so she can go to work. And they refused her. And literally, that was pretty much a decisive factor that she wouldn't give to any Catholic charities at all. Because what they did give to, she did not like. At that point, she learned that it's not real help they're giving. They're kind of helping themselves. Padding their own pockets. It wasn't surprising that later they decided to give, money for, different kind of homosexual behaviors and all kinds of other behaviors back in the 80s. It was not a shocker that they were flushing down the toilet and they don't know why. It's because you make horrible decisions with the money. I'm not saying any of those lifestyles are bad. I'm just saying is practice what you preach, because they didn't. And that kind of gave my mother a jaded view. And that's one of the reasons why I will not donate to any religious charity. Matter of fact, if you're secular, I'll probably donate to. And there's very few secular ones I'll actually donate to. Because a lot of them now are more of... nowadays, actually, I don't think no one actually cures anything. It's more of, well, we're going to let you know that you got it, or you need to go get yourself checked. I go, after 20 years, I'm pretty sure everyone knows to get their heart checked. And that's kind of the problem. And when you pay attention to the people that are involved in these charities, why is the CEO making 20 or 30 million? It's a nonprofit, right? Right now, I laugh at nonprofits. Because I wish I was a nonprofit, because I would give myself $1 million and call myself a nonprofit. Because technically you are. After you pay your taxes, there's nothing left, is there? Because even businesses could have savings. It just means you're a nonprofit. You actually have no profit after what you work. But that's being a little bit jaded. Religion and spirit versus spiritualism. As I said, there's a schism that's been around a while. Witchcraft, oddly enough, and demonic stuff is actually part of religion, as crazy as that sounds. As people don't want to acknowledge that. They think of more of the religion as, it's just Christianity. Well, there's a lot of dark practitioners in Christianity, too. You can pick up the book of Psalms or the book of Proverbs, and you can actually go over and cast spells on other people. People do it all the time. Their spell book is the Bible. And they go to church with you. So that's how good people they are. But they kind of say, well, that person deserves it. Do not judge unless you will be judged. So the Lord will judge. But I just wanted to go over and mention that. I said I don't have no real swing in either direction. Other than the fact I said I'm against organized religion in general because I think there's a corruption of the organization, period. And it doesn't matter what organization it is, actually. I'm against actually the government organizing too. I said the more bureaucracy you have, the worse that things become. There's more concerns. I think if you have more than 7 people in a room, you're gonna have problems. You cannot have a team more than 7 people; it won't work. Because then you have power struggles in the plane. It's weird. It's just the way people are. It's the way they're programmed. But I hope this helped you. Just remember, all roads lead to God. We should all love God and pray to God and thank God. Because we're ultimately all here to show how good God is. And spiritual people, as I said, they do believe in God. There's only one God. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.